Welcome to DIYeasycrafts.com. Today we're going to take a look at how to easily make burlap micarta. Now we're going to use fiberglass resin. I got this down at the local Home Depot. And we're going to laminate together a bunch of strips of burlap material, which I got down at the local arts and crafts store. I'm using just a quart container. The way that I've got this set up is I'm using cardboard sitting on a board that's over a garbage can, and I'll explain that later. First off, I want to add a little bit of brown into the fiberglass for this particular project. The particular resin that I use from Home Depot has a little bit of yellow to it. For this burlap micarta, I really wanted it to have more of a brown tinge, so I just added a few drops of a brown wood stain. You don't have to add all that much. I added the appropriate amount of hardener, and I'm going to stir this according to the instructions. Micarta is usually laminated paper or laminated material that is then pressed firmly together, and the majority of that resin squeezed out. And once it dries, it's a very, very durable, really nice product to work with. It can be used for a variety of DIY projects, as well as it's very popular for knife handles. This particular project, I'm actually going to start with a couple of pieces of brown felt. And I'm going to laminate both of those. I use just a paintbrush on a piece of cardboard. That cardboard starts to get saturated so that the next piece that I lay down, it almost gets a head start. If you notice, I'm wearing gloves. I'm wearing actually 2 pair of gloves on each hand. My left hand is my wet hand. I don't care if I get a little fiberglass resin on that. The right hand is really just holding the handle of the brush. So that's my clean hand. Even when I pick up the felt or the burlap, you'll see that I do that with the brush so as not to contaminate that particular hand. Now I've got this set up over a garbage can so that all of the waste goes into the garbage can. You'll see that when I do the pressing, the excess fiberglass resin will drip into the garbage can. It's a pretty neat setup. And my press itself is very simple. It's just made out of a couple of pieces of 4x4 screwed to some, I think it's 1x12 pine. So now what I'm doing is I'm using the same paintbrush to laminate both sides, or to saturate both sides of the burlap with fiberglass resin. When working with fiberglass, you definitely have some time restraints. This stuff usually starts to kick pretty quickly, depending on how hot it is, or whether you're out in the sun, and how much hardener you add. I'm going to make sure that each piece of burlap is completely saturated. You really don't want any dry spots. You have to always make the micarta thicker than you think you're going to need it, because during the pressing process, it really does get squeezed down. Now, once I have all of the pieces of burlap in my press, I forgot to mention before, I had coated the press with parchment paper. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually wrap that parchment right around the saturated burlap. And once that's done, I'll put it right back into the press. Micarta is really kind of fun to work with. You can mix and match materials also. You don't have to use just straight paper or straight burlap. You can mix felt, you can mix paper, and you can end up with some really cool designs and really cool end results. So now I've got that material in the press. You'll notice that I turned that press 90 degrees. That's so that the excess fiberglass resin will actually spill out over the board that it's balancing on and into the garbage can. I'm going to evenly squeeze these down with some clamps. If you squeeze just one side, kind of all of the micarta will squeeze out the other, and you won't end up with a good product. You also want to make sure that as you're clamping this, it clamps evenly left to right and also forward to back to front, so that the distance between the boards, the space, is even. And that's basically the space of the micarta that you're going to end up with. Once it's all clamped into position, you'll walk away. I left it overnight. Here you can see some of that excess fiberglass resin being squeezed out during the clamping process. And basically the next day when I got home from work, I unclamped it. And you can, different people have different ways of pressing micarta. Check out some other videos on YouTube. Mine is definitely one of the easiest cleanups. It's just a very simple process. The parchment paper usually comes off pretty easily. This time I had a roll in the micarta, in the material, and I actually captured some of that parchment paper into the micarta, kind of overlapped on top of it. So I will have to grind that off a little bit. But the product is nice and hard, and it looks really neat. I think it's going to really end up being a nice product. That brown felt definitely turns darker when it gets wet with the resin, and it dried darker. But that's going to actually be a really nice result. You know, a nice dark base to the micarta. Just as a sample, I'm going to sand a little edge of this, round over the corner, and just give it a real quick polish. This was a 400 grit belt on my belt grinder, and I'm not going to go, you know, to an 800 and to 1,000 and, you know, or hand sand it all. This is just a very, very down and dirty, quick buffing. I'm going to put a felt belt on, and the felt belt is really nice for polishing micarta. You can add a little bit of compound onto that belt. This, I think, is a P27 plastic compound, or compound used for plastics. And with a very light touch, it's very quick to polish up micarta. So this is a very quick, simple video tonight. I'm just showing you the basics of how I make burlap micarta. There are certainly other ways of doing it. I'm not saying that mine is the best way. I'm just showing you how I do it. So this is the final result. You can see the polished edge there, the rounded over polished edge. That's how it's going to look on as knife handles. It's going to actually be really interesting when I cut into the center of this and get a better piece of that brown felt, which will really add a nice deep brown or almost black base to this micarta. But I'm very, very happy with the way it came out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. By all means, check us out on the web at DIYeasycrafts.com and also Berg Knifemaking.com. Thank you very much.